Hey Aastha, how are you?
Hi Sonia, how are you?
Very well, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're looking
Hi.
also
Uh,
fresh.
yeah, trust me, it takes a lot.
I want to know what it takes and I want to get to what it takes. You're looking like super fresh. सुबह
Thank
8
you.
बजे उठ के बैठ गए हो जैसे ऑनलाइन वैसे वाला.
Yeah, you know. Secrets बाद में बताऊंगी मैं अपने.
Absolutely. We'll just wait traditionally for 2 more minutes. है ना 3
Okay,
मिनट वेट
perfect.
करने का रिवाज है
Sounds
हमारा.
good.
we just
ठीक है.
we just finished
Wait.
a session before yours on animation, so that's what happens.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, any session which runs a little extra, then everybody has to go and reorganize their life, and so uh, takes a while to come back. Can you hear me properly? Because I'm seeing like flashes from you coming in,
Perfect.
going. Is it stable?
It's stable for me.
Okay. Yeah. I was just seeing a
Wait,
picture
I'm
like.
gonna try and okay. Let me try and fix that for you.
Hmm. Yeah, the voice is also breaking a bit if there's an option. Hi, Somik. Hi, Geeta. Would be lovely to see your cameras on if possible. Akash, Jenny, everybody. Unless it's really important to switch it off. But let's make it more participatory.
Better now?
ये वाली लाइन तो हमेशा बेस्ट आती है. कैन यू हियर मी नाउ? बेटर नाउ कम्स परफेक्ट. उसके आगे का प्रॉब्लम है. और बोलो. नाउ यू फ्रोजन. आस्था. Frozen, frozen. See, Murphy's Law. Better now, frozen.
I think अब solve हो जाएगा.
Hmm. ऐसा लग रहा है.
35.
मॉर्निंग ग्लोरी जो है वो नेटवर्क पे भी आ गई है. नॉट बैड. All right. Oh, okay. So we are at 9:04. We can't wait any longer. The recordings are going to be available for people to see later and react. But let's move on. All right. So आस्था जी, वेलकम 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 टू मल्हार फिल्म फेस्टिवल. आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है.
Thank you, thank you.
आप आए, बाहर आए.
Thank
और
you.
आप इतना अच्छा टॉपिक लेके आए, तो देर इज अ लॉट ऑफ एक्साइटमेंट जस्ट विद द टॉपिक. So we're all absolutely looking forward to learn how to be more profound and more organized in this aspect. But hi everybody. So whatever little I can introduce Astha for you is that she's a filmmaker herself. She's a producer. She's worked on some of the best names that we all have heard about in the recent times, and I'm sure she's going to take us through specifics of those because that's a part of her journey. I am not going to throw names, but I'm going to get deeper. Astha is going to get deeper on that. Hai na, Astha? I didn't tell you that, but ye to ho gayi na. So yeah, so this will happen. But that's all the various things that she's been doing. But what she has done single handedly is what is a reason that I've really requested her to come here, is to set up the Intimacy Collective, which means that she's trained herself, gone out of her ways to become the intimacy coach, taken the strong step to organize this space, and she's been doing work in that. So, Asa, what got you started in this in the first place?
First of all, thank you. That was a really cute and very pointed introduction, I have to say. So, to answer your question, um, so the Me Too movement happened around the world in the year 2017 and 2018, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and um, and that kind of really hit our industry as well, the entertainment industry in India,
yeah.
in the sense that a lot of people, it became dinner table conversation and conversation over drinks, and everyone was talking about, and basically ended up ruining a lot of people's careers, and at the same time, got a lot of people justice
Hmm,
for um, the abuse and the harassment that they had to deal with, right?
hmm,
Now, um, in a scenario and in a movement like this, what usually happens is, now you've come to a point where you have a problem, and that problem has now been addressed. But
hmm,
have we found a solution? What the West did in the year 2018 was that they began to start finding solutions around it.
hmm,
India, however, spoke of the problem but didn't find a solution. Um, Intimacy coordination in itself is one of those solutions.
hmm,
One of those other solutions is having a posh committee, making sure that there's like an independent body in every production, kind of there to support their cast and crew.
hmm,
But owing to the fact that scenes of intimacy are inherently sensitive and extremely vulnerable situations for performers to be in,
hmm,
um, it just became that much more important to kind of find a job role or a department on set that would kind of help support and navigate those scenes for them. Very similar to how, when people realize that you can't just be doing action, people can't just be jumping off of cliffs and hurting themselves in the process and fighting with lions because you want to create a story around that.
yeah,
There has to be some kind of protocol, there has to be some kind of guideline, there has to be some kind of safety around it.
right.
So similar to stunt, um, intimacy coordination kind of does exactly that,
Hmm,
uh, but for scenes of intimacy.
hmm,
um, so when I came across this job role, and I came across this job role while I was working on a film called Gehraiyan.
hmm.
um,
Shakun.
and Shakun, yes. So I was Shakun's DA. This is the year 2019. We started prep for the film pre-pandemic. I came to know about this job role through an article
Hmm,
that was written for a show called Euphoria
hmm,
on HBO. Um, and I brought it up with Shakun, and we discussed it, and we thought that we should hire an intimacy coordinator for Gheraya.
hmm.
Um, and that's when we kind of found out that there's nobody in the country that does this work.
Oops.
Um, yeah. So then what we decided was, let's reach out to intimacy coordinators abroad,
Hmm,
find out what their protocols, what their guidelines are like, and
hmm.
see what we can adopt to make Gehraiyan a safer set
Right.
for our actors. In doing so, I did a lot of deep dive into that work.
Hmm,
It felt like it was was something that I could do.
hmm,
Um, so I kind of told Shakun, I was like, ये picture खत्म होगी shoot होनी तो मैं जाऊंगी पढ़ाई करने, because I needed that little break also
yeah.
from my life.
Hmm,
Um, but then the pandemic hit
hmm.
in 2020,
Right.
and it so happened that the course that I wanted to do, they pulled up the dates, everything kind of fell into place a little bit for me,
Hmm,
and so I trained in 2020 to become an intimacy coordinator. I certified in October after going through about 6 months of training. So by the time we actually got to shooting Yeraya, I was already an intimacy coordinator,
Wow.
which was yeah, which is kind of how it happened. But yeah, the rest is history. I kind of picked it up. I was like, ye karna hai, and that's how it kind of happened for me. Yeah.
Okay. So, considering that the audience here at the festival are all independent filmmakers, so directors who are absolutely at the decision making end for everything to do with the film, you know, let's just
Yeah.
look at the mirror first, right? What we are talking with you is new, alien, is we'll have our own interpretations to it, right?
Sure.
But getting considering that you work with people like us, people like independent directors, so show us the mirror. What do you think we as directors understand about intimacy? How do we talk about it? How do our scripts show it? When we get to the set, what is it that we tell RDAs to do, while what is it that we want done? Oops.
Um, yeah, you're asking for me to show you a gap that I try very hard not to articulate to most filmmakers.
No, but
Um,
like if we don't articulate, then we are going to be also in that space of मैं तो नहीं करती ऐसे, I
yeah,
do
I agree.
this. Yeah. So
No, I agree. So what we've been doing with intimacy, at least in our countries, is, I mean, I think I can, off the top of my head, come up with maybe 2 points. One is we decide to use intimacy in our scripts in an extremely contrived manner.
mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily need to be there.
Right.
A lot of times you just throw in a scene of intimacy because you feel like it'll catch eyeballs.
Hmm.
Or then you design a scene of intimacy to make it titillating. And you want to try and create a scenario where um, अगर यहाँ पे हम गाने के montage में 2 kissing scenes और एक sex का scene डाल देंगे तो गाना चल पड़ेगा,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've kind of noticed is that a lot of filmmakers don't fully understand what the vocabulary of intimacy is between characters.
Hmm.
So then what they end up doing is they end up designing the scene of intimacy in their own head of how they visualized something
Hmm.
that is extremely stereotypical or um, referenced out of an international show.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
Everyone has a very, 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 very different way of navigating intimacy.
Hmm.
Whether it's abuse or it's like a love scene or it's domestic violence or it's familial interaction. I mean, something as simple as a pat down in a jail
Hmm.
in India would be very different to a pat down in a jail on Orange is the New Black.
Hmm.
So the minute that you've started designing scenes to make them look um like they don't belong,
Hmm.
they start becoming jarring.
Right.
Uh, so for me, I guess those two story points are points that I find a lot of intimacy is kind of around, like, brought out from that. In terms of what they do, another thing that I've noticed is filmmakers find it very easy, script writers and filmmakers find it very easy to write down scenes of intimacy, but when it comes to actually narrating them or talking about them with their own performers,
Hmm.
they don't have the vocabulary to kind of navigate that situation. They find it hard to then explain to their performers कि ये क्यों रखा है और इसमें करना क्या है and होगा क्या और हम कैसे shoot करेंगे.
Hmm.
So a script will usually say something as vague as and then they make passionate love.
Hmm.
or something like and then he violently raped her.
Mm.
I'm just coming, like,
Yeah,
these
sure,
kinds of, and then it's just
sure.
like one sentence
Yeah.
to kind of encapsulate that entire scene,
And leave
because they have
everything to the
absolutely
person's imagination or whatever you want to
कि
imagine.
अच्छा अब मैं कैमरा चला दूंगा
हाँ.
और मुझे मूड पता है, लाइटिंग हम फिगर आउट कर लेंगे, मुझे 6 शॉट चाहिए, अब जो करना है तुम कर लो,
वायलेंट है तो
यू
थोड़ा
नो
गुस्सा दिखा लेना, रोमांटिक है तो थोड़ा मशी मशी हो लेना, बस हो गया. दैट्स प्रीटी मच व्हाट आई एम
या
एबल टू
या
डिस्क्राइब.
Oh, and also this very recently I had a conversation with a director who said, um, uh, missionary as a position is extremely intimate, but doggy style as a position is very violating. Therefore, that's how we can show the difference between a relationship where there is love and a relationship where there isn't.
Profound.
And and me on the other end of that conversation, I was like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about anymore. But I guess there's a lot of like these ideas of what can stereotypically kind of tell you a certain kind of story that one kind of sticks to because they don't want to explore that territory.
Yeah.
um they don't want to do their due research,
Hmm.
and then they don't want to also allow for a conversation around it to happen a lot of times, because I mean, listen, it doesn't come from a place um of them not wanting to do a good job,
Yeah,
or
true.
like being slapshot about it. It
Yeah.
comes from a place of them there being a taboo around it. It's a
Hmm.
shamified subject. People find it so hard to talk about sex.
Yeah.
People find it so hard to even say something like what somebody else's hands and legs would be doing in a certain scenario,
Yeah.
right? So in that respect, I understand where they come from, because a
Hmm.
lot of people they don't know ki. Now in explaining this, I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want
Right.
to say anything that might seem wrong or creepy. I don't want to say anything that might seem odd to my performers. I don't want to put them in a position where they start to feel uncomfortable. But when you start to create a scenario where that everything is left to assumption,
Hmm.
you've already made your performers uncomfortable, because they have absolutely no idea what you're throwing at them.
Hmm.
And they have absolutely no idea what they're signing up for.
Hmm.
So to kind of work on being able to communicate better, um, and that stands true for all scenarios. As filmmakers, as directors, it is our top priority to be able to communicate our vision as best as possible, so that we can have our performers perform our vision for us.
Yeah.
Um, so, in order to get better at um, directing scenes of intimacy, one must learn to navigate a conversation around
Hmm.
what they're looking for. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, which means a lot of vocabulary picking up, learning certain sentences and formations, what each of them mean, a completely different set of explaining what we are currently used to explaining via here and there, little by little, right? Right. So, so great. So I hope everybody is with Astha in this, that we as storytellers, and this of course has got a cultural connection also to it, and it's the way we have been as society. We have not been personally and professionally. We've not been so open about it. We're getting better, but still a long way to go, and it becomes a problem when you have an intimate scene in a story that matters to you, but it's either there, like what Asta said, it's either there because you think it will get eyeballs, or it's there and you really mean it to be there, but then it goes flat because from there the execution is a very different road that one cannot travel on. Okay, so now considering that we have the intimacy coach here, so obviously you've all figured it out, Astha. So we are just gonna like now listen to you. So, what are the protocols that the filmmakers should here onwards follow from where we are right now?
Hire
Where
an
exactly where
intimacy
you said?
coordinator.
Hmm.
Hire an intimacy coordinator.
Perfect. Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%.
um,
You know, that's what we've been talking about at Malhar in a lot of different ways. That even though we're independent filmmakers and there is obviously a timeline and a budget issue, agreed. But there is the role of an expert, is the role of an expert, and what everybody contributes to it is completely not something that one individual person can do. So 100% point taken. But to do get to that okay, why do I need to hire, why can't I do that myself? We still need to be more informed, we need to be more.
Sure,
Yeah.
100%.
Hmm.
I feel like there are a lot of places where a filmmaker, due to their budget constraints and also due to the fact that hiring an intimacy coordinator today in the Producers Guild is not a mandatory requirement,
Yeah.
will, like, a producer will turn around and say, "Kyun karna hai?"
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? Even in those kinds of scenarios, a filmmaker can find certain tools that are available online if they do their deep dive into trying to figure out how they will go about a scene of intimacy. They can still kind of find certain guidelines that allow them to execute better.
Hmm.
um so I mean, something as simple as knowing how a closed set functions when you're on a film set, um uh understanding uh contracts and what it requires for the filmmaker or the storyteller to give in terms of information, the kinds of questions that they need to answer
Hmm.
for a performer to feel comfortable
Right.
in order to then execute.
Yeah.
So something as simple as, like we were talking about earlier, understanding how to address somebody's body in an anatomical manner
Hmm.
is so important. Instead of saying, um, that, well, a lot of times what will happen is someone will say something like, "I don't want to see her boobs, I just want to see her bare back.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
then can I just get bare back and she can be naked, full?"
Hmm.
That is the language, right?
Right.
Now, that's extremely arbitrary
Hmm.
and very vague.
Yeah.
Um, So what do you want to see? What do you want to see is, I'm going to do a medium close up
Hmm.
of her back.
Hmm.
Um, so rare above the waist nudity is
Hmm.
what I'm looking at.
Hmm.
And in such a scenario, how what we can do is we can give her the modesty garments that she requires in order to be able to be comfortable to do what she needs to do, so on and so forth. So, like,
Right.
these are it's really hard to in 15 minutes teach somebody that.
Sure.
But what one can definitely say is that, okay, so there is a website called the intimacycollective.in.
Hmm.
It has a resource called guidelines to shoot a scene of intimacy.
Okay.
Those guidelines are available for producers and performers.
Wow.
um so what and when we say producers, it's kind of the umbrella of filmmakers, directors, producers, crew, and everybody. So
Yeah.
it's 23-page document, but it basically is a crash course on how to navigate a scene of intimacy if you decide you don't want to hire an intimacy coordinator,
Wow.
or you can't afford to have an intimacy coordinator.
Hmm.
um so breaking down a scene into understanding how much nudity, how much simulated sex, making sure your casting directors are clear about what it is you're requiring out of the people that you are casting, so that you don't end up in a scenario where you cast somebody, they didn't know what was happening, they didn't agree to a certain scene, then you're sat there trying to recalibrate that entire scene because now the consent of the actor, of course, supersedes your vision.
Right.
um you want to make sure that you're in a position where you have your bases covered as much as possible.
Fair. Yeah.
uh So that would be on like a prep stage. Those are kind of the few things that you would want to be clear about.
Hmm.
Um, Much like a scene of action, one would want to make sure that they have their shot breakdowns in place
Right.
so they know exactly what they're asking for. Something, okay, so now even when we say nudity in India, we don't show that much nudity, although independent filming does still show a lot more nudity than mainstream cinema does.
Right.
But even if you are in a situation where you're showing nudity, then how much nudity are you showing? And in a lot in a lot of scenarios, people don't understand the concept of nudity, wherein if they say she's wearing a sheer bra, it's not nudity, but it is.
Hmm.
um or like if he is if you're seeing silhouette of bum, it's still considered nudity. So understanding those concepts, making sure that the riders are in place, these actors know what they want, what you're asking out of them. I cannot emphasize that enough.
Hmm.
It's always the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
The miscommunication between what you want and what the actors understand you want.
Yeah.
um and um and just like going through rehearsals, block
Hmm.
a scene the way that you would with any other, like a dance choreography.
Hmm.
Choreograph the scene, block the scene, do a workshop, make sure that your actors are physically comfortable with one another, make sure that they've broken their ice like between
Between them.
them. And
Yeah.
yeah, and they're more clear of how physically comfortable they are amongst each other,
Right.
especially in scenes of violence. It's so important to build trust
Hmm.
between performers.
The fear
So
takes over.
yeah,
Yeah.
so in scenarios where your budget doesn't allow for certain things, the tools that one has is a little bit of more hard work that goes into planning and prepping a scene.
Hmm.
Or you kind of get to shoot and then you realize कि अब हम ऐसे नहीं कर सकते, हमें ऐसे करना पड़ रहा है, and you're wasting precious minutes on set
Yeah.
trying to figure these things out.
Yeah.
um so those are like a few like things that one can do. Understanding of barriers and modesty garments, get your costume designers to give you all the possible options that they possibly can think of
Mm-hmm.
that will allow for a performer to feel comfortable
Comfortable.
walking around on set.
Right.
Again, understanding what a closed set looks like, a lot of directors don't
Sure.
understand what a closed set looks like.
Yeah.
For them, it's closed अगर मैंने दो मॉनिटर ऑफ करवा दिए, बट मेरे कंटिन्यूटी सुपरवाइजर को तो रखना ही पड़ेगा, और मेरे एसोसिएट को भी रहना चाहिए, और मेरे डीए को भी रहना चाहिए, एंड एवरीबडी शुड जस्ट बी lurking
Hmm.
in the background to pretend as if they're working. It's not required.
Hmm.
I'm also very infamous for being somebody that throws a lot of people outside set.
Oh, fair
Very
enough.
infamous.
Yeah.
I usually end up having a beautifully passionately beautiful conversation with the first lady, where I'm just like, any person that I see not working between action and cut,
Hmm.
not doing work between
Yeah.
action and cut,
Huh.
will be thrown out.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that's how a closed set functions. To be rigid about stuff like that, when you create an environment where you make a performer feel supported,
Yeah.
you create an environment where you make a performer feel like their consent is being upheld,
Right.
um they're aware of what they're getting into,
Hmm.
um and that they have a voice.
Beautiful.
They're
Yeah.
able to say when and if things are bothering them.
Yeah.
You've won the battle for the most part. Everything else will find a way of working itself out. That is, again, of course, completely my opinion,
Sure.
but it is something that I have seen through experience over the last 14 projects that I've worked on as an intimacy coordinator.
No, absolutely. I mean, why not? Because if the partner in crime is on board, then what you're going to create is obviously going to be way more nicer than it would have anyways accidentally just come out. It's absolutely
Yeah.
obvious. So what you
Yeah.
said was things like just understanding a close set, things like understanding the vocabulary, practicing understanding the vocabulary, putting the legal agreements, contracts in place, working with the costume designer, knowing what are the options as per the scene's requirement, and having the actors know about their availability upfront, so that at the consent stage they know what kind of a preparation is going on for that scene to be done. All right, now this is between, let's say, the director and the AD and the cast and crew. Now is the main man or the woman, which is
The
the
producer.
producer. The producer uncle says कि ये सब की क्या जरूरत है, you know, as what you have already said, कि this is all extra cost, who's going to bear for this kind of costume, who's going to do for this kind of a time. So are we too early, or are there any protocols remotely? No, I know you touched that the producers guild doesn't have it, but at an independent, at a shorter level, are the producers putting together some protocols? Is it happening somewhere? Yeah.
Yes, actually, we're working with with the Producers Guild itself to kind of come up with not a mandate but a guideline
Hmm.
to begin
Right.
with, to make sure that everybody is on the same page about what is the best practice around shooting intimacy.
Hmm.
Um, so here's the thing: fear is a very good motivator.
Huh, true.
uh, and and the the one thing that a producer understands better than any one of us, and having been a producer myself, I can empathize, is loss of money.
Hmm.
um right. So
Yes.
where you see, so here's how it works:
Hmm.
if you hire an intimacy coordinator, it is akin to having insurance on a project in a certain kind of way, right?
Nice. Yes.
So you know, when you invest in something so big, then you end up getting insurance for it, because there will be small damages, and then you don't want to pay a huge sum of money trying to fix that damage.
Sure.
um, an intimacy coordinator works like that kind of insurance policy.
Hmm.
So it is basically factoring in the fact that there is a risk, assessing that risk, and then finding your best available tools to circumvent any scenario that may kind of occur due to that risk.
Hmm.
Uh, for producers to understand the use or the value of an intimacy coordinator on set, they first need to understand that there is a risk attached
Hmm.
to a scene.
Right. Sure.
Um, and in a lot of cases, when there isn't a risk attached, it is a function of the director or the storyteller or the people that are the core crew, which is the DOP, the director, and the producer, or the creative producer, the screenplay writer, bringing in the fact that while they've written something, they don't have the creative toolkit also to then execute it. So that's when you bring on a choreographer, because
Hmm.
they're a skilled technician that knows how to dance. You want a dance song, but you don't know how to dance.
Right.
So here's somebody that can teach somebody how to dance.
Yeah.
Similarly, an intimacy coordinator can choreograph and then design a scene, make sure that it feels authentic to the story. So understanding that the creative value of that is also another reason why producers do hire intimacy coordinators.
Nice.
And thirdly, because intimacy coordinators oversee contracts like to the T.
Wow.
um
We have finally
so
begun
we
talking about contracts in this country of ours. Not bad. That's music to you.
Yes, we have. Yes, we
Wow.
have. And that's the only way. While I always say that a contract is actually, well, you know, with intimacy, contracts are not binding to a point where consent cannot be reversed,
Mhm.
which is a much larger conversation. We come to it.
Right.
Um, but what it does is, when there are these stopgaps in having consistent conversation around a scene of intimacy, you're
Hmm.
already mentally preparing people. You're preparing them on paper, then you're preparing them when you've kind of had a rehearsal, you're preparing them when you're workshopping, you're preparing when you're talking about it, you're preparing when you're blocking the scene. You're constantly putting up scenarios where these performers are mentally taking notes on what it is they're going to have to do,
Right.
as opposed to throwing them in the deep end.
Hmm.
um, so when you do things like that, um, performers then come prepared, they come aware of what they are comfortable doing, they
Yeah.
come aware of what their scene partner is comfortable with and not comfortable with,
Right.
and how they kind of need to behave, what is work appropriate behavior in such a scenario,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So producers kind of then also come in to make sure that crew and cast are feeling um, confident
Hmm.
of being able to achieve the day and in good time, and you're not wasting precious minutes on set, and like,
That's what matters
because
to a
that is
producer.
also
Yeah.
essentially it's the chiching going away,
Yeah.
like feeling of evaporation of money
Yeah.
that
It's
that
like
drives a
मेरा
producer's
पैसा चला
intent.
जाएगा मेरे हाथ से. That itself, like if a person realizes कि जा नहीं रहा है, बच रहा है आपका पैसा in the long run, and in the various things, that is what gets a
Yeah,
producer to sort of move things. That's a
yeah,
damn good
yeah,
strategy. Huh? Not bad.
100%.
Going strategically about it. Okay, so
Trying to put bread on the table.
नहीं नहीं, that's you're absolutely right. For a producer, all that the time is also not going to move them. What's going to move them is a relationship with money. If anything में रोकड़ा बचता है तो बताने का भाई. That's when they'll move things. Okay, so that's one. Now, before we move to the other side of the conversation, I just want to open up the panel. Any thoughts, anybody, anything that you want to just share, anything opened up for you, any questions for Astha? Let's bring it part one right now.
Hi, this is Shuromo. I'm from Kolkata. And so, firstly, I would like to say that thank you for bringing in this topic, because I really do believe that this is a very important topic, um, especially in the times we live in right now. Um, I wanted to ask, how important is it to have a woman as the intimate coordinator?
Ooh, that's actually a really good question. I get asked that a lot, surprisingly. It's a gender neutral role, much like a DOP's or a director's role. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, you just need to know your job. Honestly, a lot of training that goes into becoming an intimacy coordinator is very theoretical and extremely deeply rooted in psychology and in understanding the law of the land, and also um, being creatively aligned to the idea of being able to create a scene. So filmmaking at its core. So I don't think that you need to gender this role in any shape or form. It just so happens that um, and I can say so proudly as a cishet woman myself that we're one of those departments in the filmmaking space throughout the world where a larger number of women or non-binary folk are heads of departments as opposed to cishet men. Having said that, it's not like a cishet man cannot do this job. They can do it well, very well as well. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your gender is.
It's very good to hear that also cis man can do it, because me being a cis man, I feel like, So basically, the film I have submitted in Malhar, it's called The River, and it has a character which I have portrayed as, but absolutely nude. So when I was shooting for that, like I was shooting this for the first time, like a character who would be nude. I was doing this for the first time, um, but I knew, I kind of understood, the how to kind of make the space a safe space for the actor as well to perform. But having said that, I was still very unsure, because me being as a cis man, I was like, um, I perhaps would have to get someone, a woman, who would actually present my thoughts to her, even like very intimately. Like I what I did was I hired someone, and she was actually the assistant director. I did not know of the term intimate coordinator back then, and I told her that I need this. Now you go to her, and you would be there with her for all the time. Like she should not, like I should not give her, like when the shot gets cut, I should not be the one who would be going and giving her the wardrobe to cover herself. There should be a woman doing that. So but still I was feeling that, as I was hearing to this conversation, I felt like, does cisman like can cisman also do this? So yeah, that was my question. But I'm glad that you think that cis men can also do.
So, Shuramo, didn't you actually have the conversation of um, directing your assistant director and explaining to her
Yes,
what it is you wanted?
yes.
Okay. So then why the gap in trying to explain directly to the performer?
No, I did explain to the performer as well, definitely. Because of course, uh, I always have this notion to kind of say whatever I have in mind to the actor or the performer, but I still had someone who would be close by all the time, because I
Yeah,
wanted
no,
to maintain that.
100%. That actually is actually a really cool way of dealing with it, which is what you've done is in effect, you've created a scenario where there is a support system available in
Yeah,
some form for the performer.
yeah,
Um, so having an assistant director in that kind of scenario makes a lot of sense. One of the reasons why and assistant directors don't usually end up doubling up as intimacy coordinators, however, is because what happens is that there is a power dynamic at play, right? As a
right,
director and between a performer, there is a power dynamic at play. And now, if an assistant director who is predominantly your assistant is working as the intimacy coordinator, doubling up as the intimacy coordinator, a lot of times what can happen is because they are unable to be in a position to interrupt that power dynamic, they may or may not be able to at all times come back to you and say, but sir, she's not
right.
comfortable doing this. Because what
Mm.
she will do in that scenario, whatever, whoever the AD is will do in that scenario, is that they will turn around and tell the performer, no, but sir wants this. So please, can you do it? Because that's their job to do. That's predominantly what they're there for, to execute your vision. So that's kind of where that catch 22 occurs. But however, in a scenario where you have that open stream of communication, you've been able to create a space where the performer feels comfortable and has like a support system on set. Nothing like it. A lot of people do the exact same thing, at least especially in the South. In fact, I'm doing a training program right now, and one of my students in that training program is a costume designer from the South.
Right.
And what they've had to do practically their entire career as a costume designer is navigate um, कितना belly दिखेगा, कितना shoulder दिखेगा, uh, कितना close up में जाएगा for item songs
Right.
and for scenes of intimacy for their performers, because the director would usually have that conversation with the costume designer and then say, you go talk to the actors and tell them what they're wearing and you figure it out. Like, don't get me into this. So yeah, there are those different roles on set, at least so far, that have kind of doubled up as intimacy coordinators. And there have been people that have kind of seen that there is this gap, but they don't know how to fill that gap, so they found people on set that are already there to kind of go in and fill those gaps
But
for
Asta,
them.
is that a good practice because the person is not really trained?
No, it really isn't. It's not a good practice, but it is something that has continued to happen.
Yeah.
So changing it overnight is not something that anybody like, nobody's a
Sure.
superhero.
Sure.
But the reason that it isn't a good practice, like you rightly said, is because they're not completely trained, right?
Yes.
So you can't expect a costume designer to be completely trained in trauma informed care. So what if somebody gets triggered and suddenly needs mental first aid? Now where are you going to go find that?
Yeah.
And
Or even in
what
the
are you going to
basic conversation, Asta. I mean, I was just when Suromo was saying that okay, if the shot requires that somebody just goes and hands over a pair of dress to somebody who's just given a shot, right? Now it's the body language of the person who's walking in to give that piece of cloth also. Like if that person is not going to be neutral at that act, of giving the costume, or which means that is going to wear the same hat that anybody completely off would be wearing, then it's actually worse.
Yes,
Might as
it
well
can
just
be.
have a man go and give it if the man is going to be neutral. Kya farak padta hai, but it's a thought, right? So and it's often like we know it, we know it culturally. It's not a woman to woman thing. Women can be very weird with other women, so it doesn't make it any safer to
Yeah.
put a woman with another woman, honestly. Like
Yeah, and also I guess what we do is we always talk about it in the binary, where we talk about it like ये औरत के लिए अच्छा काम है और ये मर्द के लिए अच्छा काम है, and we kind of have those gender roles assigned attached to them, but I don't think that
yeah.
this kind of job role does have scope for something like that, to be
Yeah.
very honest with you.
Yeah.
So like something as simple as, now if somebody turns around and says, but you're a woman, why would you be an intimacy coordinator on a scene where there are two gay men?
Yeah, that's true. That will also
What
come.
do you do in that kind of scenario?
Yeah.
What do you do in a kind of scenario where where there's a trans person,
Right.
or whether there's a like somebody who's non-binary? So
So what would
if
you
there's
do?
non-binary folk,
What would you do,
you
Asta?
do the same job you would do for absolutely anyone else, because you're trained like that.
Mhm.
You don't walk in with your genitalia assigning what job you're capable of doing. That's what equality in the job space is about on a very, very basic level.
Beautiful.
um
So it's absolutely like this. Like I mean, absolutely on the gay example, it's like I mean, if the subject is heavy on a, let's say, a gay person's life, then people are expected to understand that person's life. No, other people cannot. That's a space which you cannot fake it. You've not been there. You can understand it at a human level, at a personal level. Yes, you can have all the love or the humility for the person, but no, if you're not gay, it's we're faking it. We've no idea what it is. If I'm not a man, I can't understand a man's world. I'm sorry, I
yeah,
have a sense of it, right? So the only thing that comes to rescue is training, where all of these considerations have been taken. The person has been trained to, like I mean, keep your
do their
biases or
job.
do this job.
Yeah.
Just be clinical about it, and just do the job and get on with it.
Yep.
Awesome. So what do the actor workshops do, Asta? What do you do in the workshops with the actors? What all
So
does it
actor
look like? Sorry.
Yeah, no, sure. Actor workshops usually look like, first of all, they're a reading of what the scene is, what is expected. Then there a narration of the director coming in and the intimacy coordinator kind of um, uh, informing the director's vision with the correct vocabulary of what is being asked out of them as performers. Like, what you'll do with the actors is be like, okay, so um let's say Alex, the director, has now turned around and said, we need to do a scene which is a gang rape. Okay. Um, in that scenario, I have four, say, men and one woman. Okay. Or let's make it more interesting. I have four men who are gang raping a minor teenage boy,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Alex, the director, will come into the room, give their understanding of what the scene is and what they want out of that scene. What is the arc of that scene? What are you trying to achieve with it? Are you trying to achieve gore? Are you trying to achieve discomfort from the audience? Are you trying to achieve um in a scenario where an intimacy coordinator would inform someone's gaze, are you trying to make the rapists look like heroes? um so then somebody will interject and then be like, okay, you know what, the gaze here is kind of off, we need to recalibrate what we're trying to show. What is the aim? Let's understand that first. When we understand the aim, we inform that aim to the performers so they are aware of ye kyun kar rahe hain hum. And then in an actor workshop, a lot of exercises come to play in order to make them feel like they're better prepared to get into a scene. And then finally kind of get into the blocking of it. Okay, let's choreograph this now. um you'll choreograph specific to how you've decided to shoot. You can't choreograph unless you know कि क्या दिखाना चाहते हो.
Right.
So in a scenario where I'm going to do this one long shot, but then the rest of it I'll play on someone's face, right? If you're going to play on someone's face, then I need to then sit with them and arc out what is that emotional journey going to look like? What is their internal monologue going to look like? What is the vocabulary of the body language? What are their hands and legs doing in that scenario? And then inform those different parts of that character basis what has been written. Who is this person? Are they somebody that would scream and try to run? Are they someone who would freeze? Will they be someone who has a fawn reaction to trauma? Asking all of those kinds of questions and having that discussion with the actors, with the director present, so that the director, who may or may not have sat and thought about all of these conversations or these questions about the character, then can say, okay, no, you know what, you're thinking like this, but this is what I think. So that conversation to kind of really deep dive into what we're trying to unpack here. And then do like exercises. I play a lot of games in my workshops. Like I play a ton of games. One of the major reasons for that is games is a really good way of breaking ice between people.
Yeah.
It's also a really good way of building trust between people. And then you finally go in and you read the scene, you figure out how you're going to choreograph it, what you would like to do. What sometimes I do a choreography, but it won't feel like it's authentic. Very similar to how sometimes a script writer will write a dialogue, like a dialogue writer will write a dialogue, but for the performer, it's just not rolling off their tongue. Right? It's just not coming authentically. It's just not, they're just not being able to deliver it because it's not written for them. It's not what they would be able to perform. So a lot of times that will happen with choreography as well. It's just not coming. It just feels off. It feels flat. It feels like it's not pacing in a certain kind of way, that kind of stuff. So then working with that, basically the idea is by the end of the workshop, you want to reach a point wherein you can walk them into the film set and then be like, point and shoot.
So, does it also happen that working with the actors during this workshop could also lead to changes in the script?
Yes, 100%, because that's when you kind of come to know what their consent is like with this
Hmm.
person, with context to their scene partner.
Right.
Um, so it's very simple. Like, I don't like someone touching my hair.
Hmm.
I have a problem. Like,
Yeah.
anybody that pulls, touches my hair, I can't stand it. It
Hmm.
really, really does me. Um, but there are certain people in my life with whom, if they do touch my hair, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, if Ma is giving me a chumpy, it's fine,
Right.
right? I won't
Yeah.
get irritated by that. The reason is because consent is different with different people.
Huh.
Um, how your body reacts to other people entering your ethereal space is very different.
Hmm.
Um, so to understand where and with whom, what works,
Hmm.
and then to then see with the director key, this is how far we've been able to reach with your vision, and this is where we are at with their consent. So let's now try to marry the two and reach a point where we can design the scene.
Do you remember and can you share a story where this really happened?
It happens
Without
every time.
we yeah, but like what's coming to your head?
um
You can delete the exact names and stuff, but just the incidents and the story of it.
yeah, okay. So hmm trying to think. So most recently I did a scene in a jail cell, um where a female uh havaldar sexually molests one of the kedis.
Hmm.
Okay. um and one would imagine this is two women, it's implied nudity, implied simulated sex, it's all suggestive. This is one more word that a lot of directors use, suggestive. All of that stuff, and two women, what is the issue, so on and so forth, right? So there's this director who comes in very passionately and gives their entire like brief of what they want, and like, oh, then you do it like this, and then in trying to give that brief, this director ends up um demonstrating physically to this performer
Yeah.
what it is they want out of that performer. And I'm at the edge of my seat, like trying to be like, don't do that, don't do that, you know. But and then the performer, during workshop, after workshop, came up to me, spoke to the director, said, these are a few things that I'm not okay with because I'm physically very uncomfortable by X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
And then, like, I think something along the lines of something around their waist that they're a tickle problem.
Hmm.
Like the minute somebody touch their waist, they jump up.
Right.
And it's something, as bizarre as that. And then the director was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, and it went into this full like apology session, and then it went into, okay, let's change the scene, let's figure it out in a way where I can get this exact same thing. Now Astha, tell us, what is the choreography? because because they're just like, अब तो मैं नहीं कर सकते जो मैंने सोचा था तो अब
वो तो
क्या
चला
करें.
गया हाँ.
Yeah, so
फिर
I mean
आस्था
that
ने क्या किया?
happened.
फिर
अब
आस्था ने कमर को कैसे
अपना
रिप्लेस किया?
काम अपना काम जब आएगा तब देखिएगा. Let's leave a little mystery.
Ah, so now we have to look out for a film which has some sequence like that, and then look at that. Of
You
course,
have my number, hit me up.
got the scene now, Asta. Lovely. I mean, it's actually very intriguing, and yet,
Hmm.
I mean, least frivolous to say so. To say it officially, it's of course not at all frivolous because it actually affects the mental health of anybody and everybody around, and that's
Yes.
serious. That's absolutely serious. So yeah, we can just laugh around with that word slightly being cheap, but but of course it's. I mean, when you're saying that the person had an issue with that, I'm just wondering that okay, there are 10 things coming to my head, but I don't know at all what you would have suggested and why. And that's the
Yeah.
mistake. That's the mistake so far we do. That we just try it out and things hyper combination of this and that, but it's not coming from a trained space. It's just coming
Yeah.
from this looks best. All right. Uh, Fast forward a few years from now, your work would be deep down. You know, you're
Oh my
already
God.
all over Bollywood, but the Producers Guild will say Aastha Khanna or the film doesn't get made. Intimacy collective होना ही पड़ेगा, right?
What's your favorite chocolate? आपके मुंह में वो वाला chocolate?
You know, वो virtually नहीं आएगा आस्था, वो deliver होगा तो वो तो
Yes, ma'am. I'm on it. Kal subah, first thing.
absolutely, I'm not going to leave that. So once that happens, you know, and that's in sync, it's become a protocol, more or less people are
Yeah,
following that.
yeah, yeah.
uh what is your suggestion to the independent filmmakers? What is it that they can prepare themselves to write the stories like?
Sorry, repeat your question.
So considering that all
I
these teething issues are over or close to over, you know, we progressed in the thought process, and we are not.
Mhm.
So remember the first question where we talked about where are we right now, you know,
Yeah,
which you
yeah.
sort of vividly made us feel pathetic about, you know. So considering that we've
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as y'all.
नहीं नहीं, आप तो इवॉल्व हो गए हो तो, you know, so considering that we are not such a bad student now, and we've evolved now, so these protocols, producers, money, contracts is better off, right?
Yeah,
Now what would
yeah.
that world look like? What would the stories come around? What kind of stories are possible? What kind of narratives are possible? You know, right now we can't
Oh,
see that.
I think intimacy can be designed to be extremely authentic to the world that we're trying to tell stories of. So, I always say this. I always say that, why do we as a country shy away from the idea of exploring intimacy in our storytelling? um it's a basic need. It's something that is extremely human to happen. um it is something that is a part of, it's a part of the human experience, much like sleeping, eating, all of those things, right? So if one is to speak of sex and intimacy in a scenario of falling in love and all of that, right? Also, if someone is to speak of intimacy in the scenario of familial interaction between children and parents, if someone is to speak of intimacy in the space of abuse,
Hmm.
this is all stuff that happens. This is all
Absolutely.
stuff that is a part of the human experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um I think we would then, if we have the support systems in place, be able to explore telling stories better. Because I feel like we would be able to then um, address conversation um, in ways that feel more authentic and less contrived to the stories that we're trying to tell. It wouldn't be that, oh my God, उस एक फिल्म में एक सीन में सेक्स दिखाया.
Hmm.
It'll be like so for example, we're not that far behind, I want to say, because there are going to be a lot of shows that you're going to see that are going to be able to tell you that we're not that far behind. But a show that really comes to mind in how beautifully intimacy was handled on it was a show called Normal People.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Lionsgate. If people haven't watched it, you must watch that show. For the first time in a long time, watching intimacy did not make me feel like, what are they trying to do?
Hmm.
You know what? It didn't even look sexy. It looked normal. It looked like, yeah, that could be me.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess when we reach that point, when we reach a point where we as storytellers are able to tell a story that
Authentic.
allows for your allows for your audience to feel empathy
Yeah.
towards
You
the
got it.
characters
Yeah.
in every scenario
Yeah.
that you're creating. I think that is what we're looking to achieve.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I know.
And I
I'm so
guess a couple of references coming in now, like in the next 6 months, a year, would set the trend right. Because
yes.
conceptually there is only so much that one dares to, one visualizes. But once you start seeing that in front of you, there is obviously a lot more that the creators start to get an idea from. The reason that I punched this thing was because I want to know what else is coming. What is the line? I know there's a line
I
of
knew you
things.
would try this. I knew you would. I knew it. Okay.
I'm
So
learning
there are a
branding. You see, I'm learning branding. So this was this was like a
yes, yes.
there.
I love how in every scenario like this, people put you in a position where you're just like, 1 second, let me remember मैंने किन किन का NDA sign किया था और किन किन का नहीं किया था.
Yeah, yeah, this is your memory test also. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
uh, no. But जो announce हो गए हैं उनमें से I think I can tell you a couple. I think there are a couple of shows on Amazon Prime that are coming. One that I'm actually really looking forward to, and I had a blast working on, was the show called G Karda.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a Madoff. It's gonna come soon
Okay.
on Amazon Prime. I really enjoyed also working on FOMO Shots season 3, and since they've announced it, I can tell you about that.
Season 4
It
coming
was
up.
so much fun.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so like there are a lot of these shows that are coming up in the pipeline, at least on the OTT front. Balki's film called Chup is coming.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, some fun stuff. The next 6 months power packed with a lot of the work that I've done, but um it's great for me to have that many releases coming through, because I've actually taken a backseat from being on set for the next 4 months, because I'm doing the training program right now.
Right.
So because of the training program, it takes up a lot of my
Time.
mind space, and then to be able to be on set and kind of navigate those two things becomes hard. But I'm really looking forward to a lot of the releases. It has so happened that it's been an incubator period. I've done 14 projects, only 3 have come out so far. So
Hmm.
so there's like 11 that are coming
More.
out.
The other 11
Yeah.
are steaming in.
Yes. I'm really looking forward to it happening. Yeah.
Sure. No, no, we all are. Now more so because of your involvement and because of just to see what have you, as in not like you as in person, but in that capacity, in that space, what difference has that made to the project? That's like a whole lot of learning.
Miss
All
Choksi,
right.
you're very
Arey,
kind.
बाकी बाद में because ये अभी छोड़ देते हैं तो
Yes.
अब ये बताओ कि like how do people at what stage do is it I know you will say right up front but help us understand that at what stage should an independent filmmaker engage with an intimacy coach realistically considering the cost is always a factor बट अगर उससे लेट किया तो कोई फायदा ही नहीं है छोड़ दो फिर रहने दो
कास्टिंग करने के बाद,
राइट ओके
जैसे ही कास्टिंग हो जाए
हम्म
फिल्म की,
हम्म
during prep period,
हम्म
hiring an intimacy coordinator and is a it's a good time to do so. Absolute end of that time period would be 3 weeks before you shoot, 2 weeks before you shoot, 2 to 3 weeks before you go into shooting. Yeah. No point hiring an intimacy coordinator 2 days before you're shooting a scene. Very little work can get done in that short a period of time. Then what you're doing is you're paying full, but you're not getting the full benefit of having an intimacy coordinator.
right because then what we are basically hoping is that the person will be able to handle that shot on the shoot but it's not just that there is a whole lot of a training and alignment which is required between the coach
All
and the
of the
person.
work is prep.
Prep, yeah, that's where the
All of the work is prep.
hmm,
Execution is, and set days are the easiest days to be on because of the prep that goes into it.
right.
Everything is prep.
But then
So
ऐसा
if
भी
you
तो हो
don't
सकता है ना
have,
that ऐसा भी तो हो सकता है कि casting वास्टिंग करी मस्त, you get all your characters and everything, and then the intimacy coach comes and starts to explain the intimacy, and then the actors run out, same भाई मुझे नहीं करना ये,
हाँ होता है ना,
है ना?
because the casting director hasn't been informed
Hasn't been.
correctly by the director. Yeah, so then there is a gap in them not being able to communicate what it is they need.
Yeah.
But it's better that it happens at the prep stage than after you started shooting 4 scenes and you've done 4 scenes or 4 5 days of shoot, and all of a sudden you realize this actor is not going to deliver a scene that you want them to.
No, absolutely.
So,
Yeah. Just wanted to bring
which is
that up
why
that
there is that
yes.
protocol also around working with casting directors, is giving correct briefs. You have to involve, if there is a scene of intimacy, if there is a scene of action, if there is a specific skill required, you have to involve those as part of your briefs. It's as simple as if you're doing a film about racing cars,
When will
you want to
you
make sure
get that step?
all your actors can drive.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's something as simple as that.
Sure.
So so you want to make sure that what they are bringing to the table from the beginning is the demand of the character, because the minute that you start anticipating that you'll ask these questions later after you've cast people, then it's not a demand anymore, it's a request.
Yeah.
When it's a request, it's easier for somebody to say no.
Absolutely.
Somebody's written something.
Yeah, I'll just read
Niche.
that. Do you also work for independent projects?
হ্যাঁ নিশ্চয়ই. I love how he smiled. আমিও কলকাতা থেকে, সুরমা.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
That's amazing. Are you staying in Kolkata right now?
No, I'm in Bombay.
एड्रेस
Okay.
देना जरा.
আমি
नहीं
বিরাটিতে
दूंगी.
থাকি।
কোথায়?
বিরাটি।
আচ্ছা, ওকে. আমি রুবিতে থাকি, মানে
Oh.
মা বাবা রুবিতে।
হ্যাঁ, মানে কাছেই, খুব বেশি দূর না।
হ্যাঁ, বেশি দূর নয়।
হ্যাঁ।
Yes, then I do
Wow.
work. I do work on independent projects. Yes.
Cool. I'm hoping to work with you, really.
Awesome. That was the idea. And one more question. What difficulties did you initially experience as an intimacy coach? How did your loved ones, your friends and family react to you being that? And did they initially understand the value of this profession? That's
यार ये वाला क्वेश्चन ना
yes.
लोग मसाले के लिए बहुत बार पूछते हैं.
नहीं, ये जिसने पूछा है उसको मैं जानती हूँ, उसके मसाले से कोई कनेक्शन नहीं लाइफ में, ये बहुत जेन्युइनली कोई
मैं बोल रही हूँ ना, इतनी बार मेरे से ये क्वेश्चन पूछे,
अच्छा
how do your
how did
parents
they-
react to सोसाइटी
sensitive.
में लोगों ने क्या बोला हमको?
हाँ हो क्या
हाँ,
कर रहे हो तुम हो.
Oh, I know.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, but honestly, I think the only thing that my parents wanted to make sure was that the investment that I was putting in terms of my time and in terms of the money that it would require for me to put in to get trained would be worth taking on something that was completely new and unheard of in an industry that had absolutely no space for this at that point.
Which is with everything new.
Which
There
is with
only
everything
that,
you do. I don't think I had to understand. I think what happened was when I turned around and told them this is what I want to do, my parents went ahead and did their own due research without having to, like, without asking me to sit and explain, bear that burden of explanation
nice.
on them.
Hmm.
So yeah. I actually really didn't face much of an issue with work. In fact, my parents are super supportive of the work that I do. And surprisingly a little too supportive sometimes.
ये भी प्रॉब्लम है, आधी हो गई, मतलब लिटरली मतलब
Little
बेचारे
too,
एक
थोड़ा
तो
सा
support
ज्यादा. yeah.
बेचारे.
नहीं, कभी कभी तो ना बोल भी देना चाहिए, आई थिंक, कुछ कुछ चीजों के लिए.
We're going to send this.
बट
We're going to send this cut to your parents.
मत
Sure.
बताना मेरी माँ को.
ये जा रहा है उनके पास में. अच्छा, तो अब आपको
Hmm.
स्टूडेंट्स भी मिल रहे हैं यहाँ से. Kritika is asking, where can we get training for this one if you want to pursue this as a career?
There's a website called theintimacylab.in. Also, you can find me on Instagram. We can have a chat about this. Yeah.
I'll charge a commission, but I'll connect.
Kritika's like, yeah.
ये कमीशन देखो, एक चॉकलेट तो अभी लाइफ पे हो गई, then everything, just like the things can get collected.
Sonia, are you a producer?
नहीं भाई, नहीं, I am a chatter box. I love chatting. बस गप्पे मारने हैं. बट हाँ, ये इतना तो प्रोड्यूसर पंती आती है यार, इतना तो ब्लड में होता है कि चॉकलेट मिल जाए, थोड़ी सी पानी पूरी मिल जाए, गोलगप्पे मिल जाए, लाइफ इतना बड़ा काम.
Done.
Kritika, I'll connect. You should start training. Awesome. So you've got a project here, you've got a trainer here, you've got somebody who's clear of what she should tell to her
मेरा
parents.
काम हो गया, अब मैं जा
काम
रही
हो
हूँ
गया,
सोने.
Very nice. Awesome. No, yeah, super good. Really lot of comfortable learning, and I'm glad that you came. I really wanted to touch upon this topic. It's been so due, and when I found
you.
when I found you, then since then I had it in mind that when we do Malhar, you have to come and speak, because we all need to just start getting this into our guts and start working with that. So it's done. Few people here
Thank you.
are Christianed now. Lovely. Thank you, Ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Everyone, please have a great whatever part of the day you are in right now. And Sonia, you and I will catch up.
We'll catch up. We'll connect. And
Okay.
we'll share. Yeah? All right. Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure. All right, everybody. So that brings us to the end of today as well. And this is bringing us really close to Malhar's final day. Not a very, very simple feeling to process. It almost just becomes habitual to see each other every day, but we have some more time. So let's make the best use of this time that we are definitely seeing each other and definitely, working with each other. So go play full out. Really, really go play full out. Whatever Malhar has to offer, take it in, take all it in. Some of you are taking it in. If you know the other people on Malhar by any chance, encourage them, tell them to participate. We've created a whole new format. We understand, we thought about it, and we understand that why the participation on the conversations is low is because it's a new format. Because typically a filmmaker expects a festival to give the laurel as a shortlist, and then inform of who won or who didn't, and that's really what it is. But we are all in a very changing time, right? And we're all reinventing of what's required, what's not required, thanks to the beautiful technology that we can actually connect and do this today. This was not really something that we thought was possible 2 years, 3 years back. Even if the technology existed, we hadn't tried it, right? But now this is possible. So which is why this is a very important part of Malhar, which is us meeting, us talking, us sharing our thoughts and knowledge. And which is why so much effort has been made into making sure that whoever we can bring in for a conversation, for insights, it's happened, So what, I mean, if some of you who've always been there, if you think there is value in this, if you think that you would like to get this, have this year on year, then we have to build a stronger community around this thought process. We have to build a larger community, for anything to sustain, for anything to grow. So really, just go out for this community to get created, for the right word to pass, for people to know that there are different formats within a film festival also happening, right? I mean, I'm not saying that it needs to convert into anything on Malhar. It's not the point. The point is we need to have these right conversations. Like we need to have conversations about lighting, sound, intimacy, direction, production, animation. We need to have the conversation about how are we collaborating in future? What is a community going to be like in future? And future is tomorrow, right? What is it going to work like? What is it? So have those thoughts. I do hope that after the 28th it's not going to be done and dusted, that okay, we were there a part of something that was nice, but okay, it's done, right? If there is value that you see, do your bit, go and process it, talk to us, share with us, talk to other people, and let's build this bigger together for the next year. Yeah. All right, so we will welcome everybody. The names that I'm seeing today for the first time, heartiest welcome. Mr. Gupta, Mr. Chaudhary. It would be really nice to have your quick introduction if that's possible at all. I can't hear you if you're speaking. I can see you unmuted, Mr. Gupta, but I can't hear you. Okay, maybe you just need to fix up your audio and just reconnect. That would be really nice. But quick one, how was this session? Genuinely, don't say nice, nice, just like that. Genuinely, did you expect a session on intimacy? No? Yes? Maybe? One second, let me change the format. I can barely see everybody. Itna effort to see everybody is not worth it. Okay. What were we saying? Did we expect a session on intimacy earlier? What did you think when you read the term intimacy? What did you think will happen here? Unmute, yeah.
Well, I actually Googled and I saw some interviews of Aastha, and
Nice.
yeah, I loved them. And I
Good.
was not, I did not see the whole schedule earlier. So when I got the schedule today, I was like, okay, this is something really amazing, and that's why I
Okay.
really I mentioned that it was really amazing that something like this. I mean, this wasn't on my mind that we would have a conversation on intimacy. So it's really brilliant. And
Yeah, it's
something
a
like,
very new thing.
yeah,
Sorry.
and something like this, like a position like this is actually there in the industry and in the art form. It was really very new to me, and so
It
I'm gonna
is.
definitely process more and research on it more, definitely.
Yeah, it's a very, very new thing. Great, Shahid. Great that it was worth it. Perfect. So, Bernard, why are you sorry and not on time? We miss you for every session, and then you come at the absolute end. How are we going to make up for that? Okay, Mr. Gupta, you still unmute, but if you're trying to speak, there is no way that we can hear you. Hi, Bernard.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
How are you?
Fine, and you?
Very good. Why are you late?
Oh, because a lot of things to do. I'm sorry. Uh, what are you talking about?
You know, we had two sessions today.
Yes.
One was on animation, how to plan
Okay.
your animation film. And the
Okay.
second session was with an intimacy coach. So,
What do you mean? What do you mean by intimity coach?
so, so like
You
if
know, I'm Frenchman. I don't understand all a word in English.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Okay.
intimate is the same in French. Intimate. I don't know the translation.
Okay. Let's keep the word away. But
Okay.
basically, what it means is that in a film, in a story,
Yes.
If we want to put in a dimension, put in a angle about,
Yes.
let's say, about love, but showing physical reflection of love, you know.
Okay. Okay.
So normally what we end up doing is keep it very basic, keep it to something that the society approves about,
Okay.
right?
I
or
understand.
or we approve of. But actually the human, we all as humans uh go deeper in real life, want to go
Yes.
deeper in stories, right? But when we make stories, we don't have the right tools to go deeper. So
Okay.
we start to show the story at a very high level. We don't get
Okay.
real. And
Okay.
which is when that aspect of the story doesn't touch us, move us, or inspire us, right?
Okay.
So, very recently, I don't know how it is in France, but in India, we have never had anybody who was an expert to work with the team to direct actors to do intimate scenes, to do love scenes, or to do violent scenes, to do
Okay.
hatred scenes where physically the physical involvement was more than the basic, you know.
Okay.
But now there are. So we got somebody who is actually India's first coach, you know. So she was talking about how does she work with the filmmaking team to make sure that we actually develop such stories without having the fear, by making the actors comfortable, by making the whole casting process smooth, by training workshops. So that was the content of the last session.
I have a question. In India, because I don't know India, if you have to compare with France, um, filmmaker, what the limit for Indian filmmaker to, what I can say, to make films where you have men and women who have intimacy, who have to show how to they feel, how to, it's not to make love, but is to show the sentiment, to touch. Do you have? I think in India, I don't know, but it's a question. Are you more strict in India than in Europe? Because now, if you make a film in Europe, you can show a woman and men make love or anything you can do, because it's not very exceptional. Is usual now
Right.
in France, for example. How in India? What's the position in India?
So, India traditionally is a conservative society where talking openly about even love, not sex, but even about love,
D'accord.
is,
Okay.
is not something that has been very open about. And not just the man and the woman love, but even a parent and a child love is not something that as a society we express. Like, it's not been very common that the parent would go to the child and say, I love you, you know,
Okay.
or the child would come to a parent and say, I love you. It's understood, it's felt, it's there, but it's not spoken in words, you know.
Okay.
And so of course when it goes to adults, it goes to man and woman, then it is not very, it's not very it's not presented the way it really happens, you know.
Okay.
It is sort of kept under wraps. But having said that, the last 10 years, the whole style of telling a story is
Mhm.
really changing in India. It's
Okay.
changing, because the young people are doing it. They have a voice, they have a mind, they want to tell a story the way they want to watch a story.
Okay.
So it's changing, so right
Okay.
now in India right now, I feel we're at a very interesting space, because
Okay.
storytelling is our strength. India, tells very good stories, but
Okay.
now we are going deeper into human emotions, expressing different form of human emotions, different kind of relationships, the climax, the contrary. Earlier we were like
Okay.
very straightforward mostly. It's just very
Okay.
simple, good to look at. Just happening.
Okay. It's fine.
Awesome. So whatever conversations you miss, once we post the recordings, please have a look at it. We don't want you to miss anything.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so tomorrow we will be back with fresh sessions. Bernard, where are you approachable? We were trying to contact you yesterday, but we couldn't reach you. Are you more on email or WhatsApp or
Yes,
phone?
I can put it in a conversation. I can
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it
sure,
in
sure, sure.
discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. I put it in here, discussion. Okay.
What are we doing tomorrow? Ah, super. So we have a celebrity coming in tomorrow, and we have a IP lawyer coming in, and we have the founder of Doc Lab coming in tomorrow. Not bad. Okay, got it. Bernard, how often do you check your email?
What you say?
How often do you check your email?
Every day?
Okay, so like, are you always on the email? Because yesterday we were having some session and
Yes.
we thought you should be there. So it was like we wanted to reach you in like 2 minutes. Is that
Uh,
is that okay?
I, every day I go to visit my email. I think 3 or 5 times in a day. You know.
Okay. Okay. So we are going to send. And which part of the world are you in? Are you in France?
What is your question?
What's your location?
Paris.
Oh, you're in Paris. Okay. So
Yes.
what we're going to do is today we're going to send you an email for tomorrow's session, and we will give you the Paris time in there.
Okay.
Okay? So that will be
Okay.
easier for you. So we hope then you can plan your work around it, and we hope to see you for the session
Okay. Tomorrow.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Now
I
now we
have
have
to.
now we have only 3 days left. So we will email you the schedule for all the 3 days.
Is the end of this
Yeah.
session? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Is
So
the last is the last session for the day?
today it was the last. Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. No. So for tomorrow, now we have 3 more days of the festival: 26th
Okay.
August, 27th August, and 28th August. Okay.
Okay.
So we will,
I will
yeah.
see you tomorrow. Is sure.
All right. We will send you the time as per Paris. We will send you the time.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye bye. Bye,
Bye.
everybody. See you.
Qu'est-ce que je voulais faire?